working with Collegiate Capital for 23 years this month, actually, doing all sorts of financial forms and helping all my clients for all that time. So I'm pretty well prepped for this. So we're happy that you're having us here. Thank you very much from Joanne and myself for having us for this seminar. And hopefully you will have get a lot of information and have lots of questions. And at the end, Francis, right? We're going to take all the questions at the very end, so that
yeah. And parents, you're welcome to type into the chat. As I mentioned a moment ago, we have a closed chat box this time, which I think just because of the nature of the conversation, you know what? Let's give it a try and see how it goes this time around. I'm really looking forward. I'm very happy that you're here. I've known Lorraine for about 10 years. I've referred many people to her, and I'm really excited that, you know, now that Linda is retired, that, you know, you and Wilson Consulting are working together. So I trust that everyone here is in very good hands. I'm looking forward. All right. And just remember, everyone, this is for good informational purposes. Joanne Wilson Consulting helps families privately, and we're going to discuss that towards the end. But this is going to give you a good overview. Let's not waste time. Let's get started. Okay, let's go.
And I'm going to step away. Lorraine is going to do most of the presentation, and if I need to chime in, I will, but I'm going to leave it up to her.
Okay, so all right, the first thing we're doing, as you know, you've got seniors, and mostly you have seniors, some juniors in high school, and are doing the applications right now, or have done the applications for colleges. When it comes to financial aid, the first thing you need to do is look at your list of schools and look up each one to know what financial form each one of them require. As we go along, we're going to be going over different forms for different schools. So there is the FAFSA form. I'll just briefly say there is the CSS profile form, and there is the New York State TAP form. And depending if you qualify, there is the EXCELSIOR and enhanced form. So there are also verifications and everything else, but there are many forms that need to be filled out for you to get all the money possible that you can. So with that said, we're going to start going with the FAFSA form first. And that is a form that is required by every single school you apply to if you want aid. If you do not do this form, you will not get any aid, loans included. So do you?
Oh, I can't.
Okay. You gotta go next.
She's muted.
She's muted.
And I can't change it.
Just tell me when to go next and I'll keep going.
Go next. All right, there are two types of aid. There's merit or scholarship aid, and there's need-based aid. Merit or scholarship aid is based on criteria such as your grades, SAT, ACTs, other talents, could be athletics, could be art, etc., music, whatever they're giving you a scholarship for. Need-based aid is determined by your expected family contribution, or EFC, if it's lower than the cost of education. Next. Okay, the cost of education may include tuition, room and board, and personal expenses. It's minus expected family contribution equals the student's financial need. Next. All right, so we're going to a community college, College A. That costs $5,500 a year. Your family contribution from the FAFSA form is $6,000. So there is no aid because your family contribution is higher than the cost. So if you have that EFC, you're not getting anything but loans. School B is a New York State school, which costs, we're saying right now, $20,000 a year. You have a $6,000 family contribution from FAFSA, so your need is $14,000, and somehow or other the school will put together something that hopefully comes close to that $14,000. Now, School C is your private school. Some of the schools are costing $50,000, some are $70,000. Well, you have that $6,000 contribution, and they're hoping to get $44,000 in need for aid. Next. And that aid could be given in several different ways. The grants, loans, work studies, scholarship. That is what you're hoping to get with your financial need. Next. If you decide to pursue need-based aid, your son or daughter will need to complete the FAFSA free application for federal student aid. Again, you must complete the FAFSA to apply for and receive any kind of federal loans. We'll discuss the loans later. Some schools also require for you to complete the FAFSA if you're receiving a merit-based scholarship. Not even though you're receiving this merit-based scholarship, you say, well, why? It's my merit, not my need. But some schools still require that FAFSA to be done. This application always comes out on October 1st of every year. And it came out October 1st for the 21-22 school year. Next. To fill out the FAFSA, you and the student will need the social security number, driver's license, record of any money made in 2019. That's your W-2s. The parents' 2019 federal income tax and the parents' income records for untaxed income. It could be child support or untaxed for retirement. Next. All right, what you need for the FAFSA, the student and parents' current bank statements, so you know how much cash that you have, records of the parents' mortgage and investments, business or farm records, if your family owns either. If you are have an alien registration, an A number or permanent registration card, if you are not a US citizen. And you will have to look up the 6-digit federal codes for each school to which the student is applying. And that you can find out on the website with the FAFSA. Next. Next. Does she not hear me? Next.
You're muted.
I'm muted.
No, she's muted.
Give me a second. No, I hear you. 1 second. Hold on. There we go.
Okay. To do the FAFSA form must be done every single year. You can't just do it once and think that that's going to be it for the 4 years. It has to be done for every single year. The website is www.fafsa.ed.gov. If you go to FAFSA.com, you're going to the wrong website. Only go to this website. You go to other websites, it's other companies, and they're going to charge you. So this is a free application for financial aid. It's fafsa.ed.gov. Change. As you know, you can apply for an FSA ID number. That's a federal student aid ID number. This is a signature for yourself, the student, and for one parent. The ID, again, is to sign your FAFSA. Keep your ID and your password. Don't tell anybody, keep it a secret. And the website to do that, and that should be done now. If you have not done it already, you need to make the FSA ID for the student and one parent. It's studentaid.ed.gov. Very important. And please make sure that you put in your right information. We want it matching with the social security card of the parent and the student. Next. Okay, the FAFSA inquires about basic information, your name, address, date of birth, things we basically know. 5 basic categories are: who has to complete this form? How many people are in your household? How many of those people will be in college? The income and assets of the student and the parents, and which colleges should get this information. Next. The FAFSA is to be completed by the student and their parents. Next. Now, how many people are in your parents' household? Well, of course, you need to include the student, the parents' other children, and other people that live with the parents that the parents provide more than half of their support. For example, grandparents. Next. What if the parents are divorced or separated? The student should complete the form with the parent in which the student lived with the most in the past 12 months. What if the custodial parent has remarried? Then it is their legal obligation to include the step parent in the family and also provide information about his or her income. Even if the step parent doesn't like the student or says, I'm not providing any assistance with the college education of the student, they still have to put their information on the FAFSA form. Next. So of the people who are listed in the family, how many will be enrolled in college? At least half time. Now, half time is 6 credits. If you're taking 3 credits, you're not considered going to college. You must be at least half time with 6 credits. But you cannot include parents even if they are in college. It's just your other siblings that are in college. But of course, make sure you add the student in there too. Next. Now the FAFSA is divided into 2 sections, one for the student, one for the parent. The FAFSA will inquire about the income from the previous year. If you're applying for 21-22, the FAFSA will ask information for the 2019 tax returns. They'll ask for both taxed and untaxed income. Untaxed income may include child support, untaxed interest, dividend income, or deferred compensation from your employer. You must also include any kind of business income. Next. The form will ask about your assets, which is your cash, your savings, investments, 529s, etc. A word of advice, a good word of advice is better to have the assets in the parent's name rather than the student's name. Next. There is also a section where you can list which colleges you want to send your information to. You could put up to 10 colleges at one time. By listing these colleges, the universities will be able to receive your FAFSA information electronically. You do not have to worry about sending it by yourself. Now, of course, this form will only hold 10 colleges, but maybe you have 15, maybe you have 20. You have to wait for the first 10 colleges to process, which takes approximately 2 weeks. It will process and the school has to upload them. After 2 weeks, the federal government said it is safe now to add the other 10 schools or 5 schools. You will remove 5 schools, add 5 schools. If you have to remove 10 schools, to add the 10 schools, you have to do so. You will have 2 separate transactions listed for your FAFSA, but that's okay because all 20 schools, or however many you have, more than 10, will get that information. So you don't have to worry about it. But you do have to wait for it to process. Give it some time. Next. All right, so we have the IRS retrieval. That's the transferring of the financial information from your 2019 tax returns to the FAFSA form. If there's an issue, you can always call the IRS at the 1-800-908-9946 or visit the website at www.irs.gov. And this way you can order a tax return transcript. People who have had some identity theft will not be able to transfer their tax return information. All right, this is where the parent's FSA ID needs to be used. Now, if it's the father, whoever used as parent number 1 or parent number 2, you have to designate that if it's the father or the mother and use that person's FSA ID and just follow the prompts on what you have to do. Now, you do have to put in, when you go into the IRS, the address that's on your 2019 tax returns. Be very careful as you put that in. If you're somehow or other your address is misspelled, you need to put in the misspelled address. If you have an apartment or first floor And that's listed on your tax return. You must put that on that information, or it again will not go through. So you must list that information as stated on your tax returns for it to retrieve. Once you retrieve it, you click retrieve and it'll go over automatically to your FAFSA form. Next. So what happens with all this data when you're all finished? Both the parent and the student sign the form electronically using the FSA ID, and that's at the very end. And then a few weeks after submitting your FAFSA, you're going to receive a student aid report, whether it be in the mail or an email, depending if you put your email in the FAFSA. The SAR, or student aid report, is a summary of all the information you provided on that FAFSA. Please read that first page. If there's a problem, it will be indicated on that first page. It might say, hey, that information doesn't match your tax return. Or it may say you need a verification. It could say you're going to get a Pell Grant, which is great. But it could say a whole bunch of different things. You need to look at that to make sure that anything that they're picking up is taken care of. If there's a problem, they'll let you know about it. Next. Submit your FAFSA as soon as you can after October 1st with your 19 tax return information. Again, list the schools that you want your information sent in the college section. Be sure the student and the parent sign electronically, and always, always keep a copy of your FAFSA form. Print it out. Make sure you have it on hand. Next. Okay, always be proactive. You have tuition, you have mandatory fees. This is going to be on your tuition bill, and your room and board. They also count in the cost of attendance of books, personal expenses, and other items. Next. Even though you've completed the FAFSA, certain schools may require additional forms. What might schools ask for other than the FAFSA? Well, they could ask for their own institutional aid form. Often schools have their own financial forms they want you to complete, such as Princeton, they have their own form. University of Pennsylvania have their own form, again, besides the FAFSA. They also could ask for a parent's federal tax returns signed with the W-2s. Or they could ask for a tax return transcript, which is a abridged version of the tax returns. And that you'd have to order, as we talked about before, through the IRS. And they could ask for the student's federal tax returns. If the student did not file, they may want a statement claiming that he or she did not file one, and that's called a non-filer statement. Again, you get that off the IRS website. Next. Okay, another thing that the schools would ask for possibly is a federal verification form. That's what I mentioned before, that on the student aid report, they could ask that your FAFSA was selected for a verification. Sometimes they're randomly selected for no reason at all, and there is a special form for the schools, for each school that wants this form. You have to complete it. The other form, it's a very big form, is a CSS profile form, the College Scholarship Service. It is often requested by private colleges that give out substantial amount of their own institutional aid instead of federal aid. Again, this CSS form is just for school aid, not federal aid. Very important to look up what schools require this form. It is about 25 to 30 pages. They'll go in very big depth of what they want, the information they want about you. They could also, if the parent is divorced or separated, ask for a non-custodial parent to fill out their own CSS profile. So not only do you have to fill it out as the parent, the non-custodial may have to fill it out as well. Next. Okay, completing the CSS is a two-step process. You must also determine if the colleges require this form. Again, look through each of your schools to see what's required. The first step is registering, but most of you has already registered with the college board with your SATs. And of course, the second step is actually completing the profile. Next. Next.
Okay, just one moment. I'm switching right now. Just make sure everyone's on mute. Go ahead. Hold on.
Okay, unlike the FAFSA, which is free, there's a registration for the CSS profile. The registration fee is $9. And then for every school that is required, it's $16 for each of those schools. Make sure to complete this form before the deadline. Very important to get the most money. You must do these forms as early as possible. Even if your deadline is December, get it done as quickly as possible. You can do these forms even if you haven't put in your applications. Get the forms done. All right, colleges use the profile to award their own institutional aid. Again, the profiles anywhere now they're 25 to 30 pages and require more information about your income and your assets than the FAFSA. Next. The colleges that require the profile will want information about your current mortgage information, the balance owed on the primary mortgage, as well as the home equity, and how much you pay for your mortgage each month, your mortgage payment. They have additional questions about your assets. They want to know if your parents are separated or divorced. Unreimbursed medical expenses for 2 years. They'll ask you for 19 and possibly how much is for 20. They also want to know, which the FAFSA does not ask, is your retirement money. If you have a 401, 403B, IRAs, they want to know for the parents how much money is in each of your retirement funds separately. Also, if you have other real estate in addition to your own home, they need that information. Information on all the businesses you own, very specific. You need to have your business tax returns with you to do this part of the CSS profile. They also may require that your non-custodial parent complete his or hers as well. Rule of thumb is send only the information the colleges request. Do not send anything else. When in doubt, call your school. Next.
Yeah, I'm going to the next one.
Okay.
I'm good.
There are two types of financial aid. You got grants, loans, and employment. All right, your grants is gift aid, your scholarship and scholarships, they don't have to be repaid. Some people with a low income can get federal Pell Grants for $6,345 or less. You could have a supplemental grant up to $4,000. And if you live in New York and go to a New York school, you could get up to $5,165. And this is at a very low income that you would get that much money.
Okay.
Next. Your loans aren't necessarily bad and can be very helpful if used correctly. Borrowing money can help the student accomplish their goal of getting an education. And repayment terms on most school loans are very reasonable, and the lenders will work with you during repayment. This also can get the student some credits that they could use. Go ahead. Next. Next. The student loan rates for this year, and every year they could change. For this year, the direct subsidized Stafford loan is 2.75. And the unsubsidized Stafford loan is also 2.75. The subsidized loan does not accrue interest while the student is in school taking at least 6 credits. The unsubsidized loan accrues interest immediately. They all also could take alternative loans, which is private loans, or institutional loans. Some schools have their own institutional loans, which usually is interest-free. So the students only have a certain amount, which we'll go into a little bit later. The parents also have what's called a Parent Plus loan, and that is 5.3% interest. The difference between a subsidized and unsubsidized is while the student's in school at least half time, 6 credits, there's no interest accruing on that loan. And the student does not have to make any payments until 6 months after graduation. Now, again, graduation does not necessarily mean undergraduate. If they're going on to graduate or above, as long as they're taking 6 credits, that loan will not accrue interest. All right, but once the student has graduated, the interest will start accruing on that loan. The unsubsidized loan means the interest will accrue after the first disbursement is made. An unsubsidized loan is not need-based, where a subsidized loan is need-based. Next. All right, the loan limits. As a first-year student, a freshman, you could get $3,500 subsidized or $2,000 unsubsidized. Now, again, this is need-based, so that could switch around a little bit. As a second year, it's $4,500 subsidized the most and $2,000 unsubsidized. For a third and fourth year, it's $5,500 subsidized and $2,000 unsubsidized. So basically the loans would be $55 for the first year, $65 for the second year, and $7,500 for the third and fourth year. That is all the student is allowed to get through federal loans. They cannot be taking out $50,000 in loans. They're only allowed this amount through the federal government. Anything else would be either a private loan or a parent loan. Next. Now, if you take out a private loan or an alternative loan, those interest rates vary. The private loans are taken out in the student's name, but must have a cosigner. And that cosigner, if that student stops paying the loan, they're responsible for it. So just to let you know that it goes on your credit report as a cosigner as well as the student as the signer. So the institutional loans, the interest rates could vary as well. Every school has their own interest rate. And the parent loan has a fixed rate every year. And again, every year the student loan and the parent loan rates do change, but they're fixed for that particular year. In addition to the interest, there are also loan fees. The fee for the student is 1.069%. So in other words, if you're getting that $5,500, they do take off 1.069% before it's dispersed to the school. If the parent takes out a parent loan, their fee is 4.276%. Again, that money is taken off right off the top before the money goes to the school. Next. Now, your student may be awarded a federal work study. This is a job offered to the student to earn money while going to school. Any money they make through work study is not considered income by the federal government, only by the federal government. In other words, if they have a job during the summer making $1,000 and they have a work study making $1,000, you still have to put down that you made $2,000, but then on the FAFSA form, they say, well, how much of that was work study? And you say $1,000. Well, the federal government only considers you making $1,000 and not $2,000. So that is beneficial for you to get a job with a work study. It also give you some pizza money so that your mother or father doesn't have to give you money for spending. You can make your own money. Next. So other miscellaneous or unusual circumstances that could happen, maybe a loss of a job by a parent. Maybe the parent has unusual medical expenses. Maybe they have primary or secondary expenses of children in their family, daycare expenses, parent repaying his or her own loans. This stuff is all used for appeal. If you don't get enough money, you can put in an appeal form with proof of maybe unusual medical expenses or maybe the loss of the job, different things like this, but you need to have proof. You just can't say, I lost my job. You need to have proof of that. So, and proof of when it happened and how much income you're actually losing. Medical expenses, they may ask you to provide medical bills that you have. So any of that, you have to give actual numbers when you're doing this appeal with these pieces of information. Next. Okay, so that's the FAFSA and that form. Now, the other form that has to be filled out is what's called a TAP form. This is a tuition assistance program for undergraduates only. This cannot be done for grad school. All right, it is need-based. It is up to $5,165 a year. It's for full-time or part-time study in New York State. The part-time has to fill out a separate form, has to fill out the TAP form and another form as well through their school. And the 21-22 applicants, again, is based on line 37 of the New York State income tax for 2019. Now, the only way you qualify for TAP or tuition assistance program is if your New York State income tax line 37 is 80,000 or less. Now you say, oh, I make more than 80,000. But when you have a New York tax return, there's a whole lot of deductions in there that they take off. So line 37 may be zero. For all you know, maybe you make $20,000, but line 37 has a zero there. So look at line 37 of your 19 tax returns. But even if you do not qualify for TAP, going to a state school in New York State, do the form anyway. Maybe your child is going to be receiving a scholarship from New York State. Maybe you were part of the World Trade Center. Maybe you don't qualify for TAP itself, but you qualify for other things through New York State. Very important. Maybe you got very high regents scores. You may get a Regent scholarship through New York State. Very important to do this form anyway, even if you do not qualify for it. And later on, I'll talk about the EXCELSIOR, which even though you don't qualify for TAP, you must do that in order to get the EXCELSIOR scholarship. So either way, even if you feel you're not eligible, do the form anyway. Next. Okay, so now we'll talk about the EXCELSIOR, which I just brought into. Next. Okay, what is the EXCELSIOR scholarship? The EXCELSIOR scholarship provides full in-state tuition for eligible undergraduate SUNY and CUNY students. It'll pay up to $6,500 minus any amounts of TAP, Pell, or other scholarships. So they actually have given an EXCELSIOR tuition. So even if your tuition is higher than $6,500, they actually give you the EXCELSIOR amount and leave it. It has now they have now lowered the tuition if you get EXCELSIOR, but they will only give you this for the tuition. It does not include any kind of fees that you have or room and board. It is just tuition. But if you have $6,500 and you have $500 in TAP, maybe $500 in Pell, that's minus $1,000 off that 6,500. You can't get the Excelsior and the TAP and the Pell. That's all together in for the full in-state tuition. Now, in order to qualify for this, for the 2021-22 school year, your adjusted gross income on your 2019 tax returns have to be $125,000. Now, that's a combination of the parent and the student. So if the student files a tax return, their adjusted gross goes into play with this 125. So if your student does not have to file a tax return, don't. If you're that close to that 125, it could hurt you. Next. Do your assets count for this profile, for this Excelsior? No, it does not. All right, New York State takes into consideration student and parents at, does it? No, the eligibility for this program is based only on your adjusted gross income. You could have $1 million in assets, but if your adjusted gross income is 125, that is the only thing they take into considerations. Next. Next. Okay. One back. One of the other requirements are that the students take 30 credits a year. Now, those 30 credits a year could be, maybe you had some AP credits that you brought in with you. Maybe you had some college credits that you brought from high school that came in. If you did some summer credits, the year means fall, winter, spring, summer of that year. That you must take 30 credits for the year. So 30 credits as a freshman, then it would be up to 60 credits as a sophomore, etc. The other requirement for the Excelsior is for as many years as you receive this Excelsior, you must live, and if you have a job, work in New York, any part of New York, for that many years. If you receive it for 4 years, you must stay for 4 years. If for some reason you get a job that is outside New York, then it becomes a loan. But if you've lived in New York for 2 years, they prorate it. Then you only have to do it if you get the scholarship. Then for the other 2 years, it would become a 0% loan, 0% interest rate for that time period. If you are in graduate school, not a problem, because you're still going to school. You can go to, say, Washington, Michigan, wherever you want. That is okay, but it's after graduation that you must reside in the school to receive this award. Next. Okay, well, we just talked about this. The postponement of the in-state residency is allowed for graduate study, medical residencies, and of course, military service, absolutely. And you do have, if for some reason it becomes a loan, you do have an interest-free loan for 10 years to repay it. Next. In order to keep this Excelsior scholarship, you must apply for the FAFSA and the New York State Tuition Assistance Program, the TAP, every single year. All right. Applications for 21-22 students have to be filed within the filing time. The Excelsior this year came out a little bit late. Usually it comes out in June and it's over in July. This year it came out, I believe it was either the end of July or the beginning of August, and it was over by the end of August. So it came out a little bit late this year, but there's only a small window in order to apply for this Excelsior scholarship. So make sure that you apply on time. Again, watch your deadlines. Very important. Next. All right, so now, not only do they have the Excelsior, but now for some private schools, they have what's called the Enhanced Tuition Award. It provides tuition awards for the New York State residents attending participating private schools. You could get up to $6,000 with a combination of your TAP award, and the private college is going to give 3,000. The state is doing 3,000. But again, you have to subtract the TAP. Their scholarships on this does not get subtracted. Again, you must earn the $125,000 adjusted gross income between parent and student for the 19 tax returns. Right now, there are 33 participating private colleges for the 21-22 school year. At this time, we don't have an updated list to put out, but it's not mandatory for the colleges to participate in this enhanced tuition award, and some have a limited number. So in other words, if their limit is 50, that's all they're doing, 50. Anybody after that, even if you qualify, will not get it. Other schools are unlimited. It all depends on the school and what their limits are. Check with your New York college to see if they are participating in this enhanced. And again, it is on the website of for HESC to do these enhanced and Excelsior. And again, watch your deadlines. Next. I'm gonna see right now. There are also New York State Achievement Merit Scholarships, the New York AIMS. It's you could get $500 annual award for study in New York State. And the requirements are if you graduate with a GPA of 3.3, maybe graduate with honors, Regents diploma, the score of 3 or higher on 2 or more APs, and you graduate in the top 15% of your high school class. You apply at hesc.ny.gov in May of your senior year. Please, again, watch your deadlines. Once it's over, it's over. Next. Again, hesc.ny.gov. That is also that's where you go for your Excelsior. That is go for your TAP, and you go for the enhanced. That is the website, hesc.ny.gov. Next. Okay, do we have any questions? Francis?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I'm just going to get rid of the share screen right now, and I'm going to check if there are any questions. Okay, just one moment. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you so much for doing this. Give me just a moment. I'm just going to stop the share screen. I'm stopping the share. Perfect. All right, so there are quite a few questions in the chat box, so I'm going to go through them. Okay. And I'm going to read them out. All right. Thank you, everyone. Hold on. And I'm really glad that we all got to listen in. All right. From the top, would you advise to not file a FAFSA based on my income, net price calculator? We were not going to get need-based aid. Does not doing a FAFSA convey the message to the college? Does it make us look desirable to these colleges, knowing that I would pay full tuition? By the way, Francis, thanks for hosting this again. I'm really glad you watched my, what was that? A few times, and it's very useful. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
All right. Some schools, as I said before, even if you don't feel you're need-based in doing the FAFSA, you may qualify for a scholarship that requires the FAFSA form to be done. So I would absolutely, even if you feel you're not going to get any aid, do the FAFSA form anyway, because it could qualify you for some other type of aid or scholarship for your student. Absolutely.
Next question. When changing a university in the FAFSA, I have 2 more colleges to put in. Do I take all the colleges and then put in 2?
I just removed 2 schools and just remove 2 schools and put those 2 schools in. And I would advise putting them up on top. There is a little bar on the top when you add the schools, and you can click on first. Put them up on top so that it's right there for you to see.
I don't see a Macaulay Honor, the FAFSA. Is it a separate application process?
Okay, Macaulay Honors, when you say a separate application, it is not a separate financial application, but it is a separate admission application. Now that you do with your guidance counselor, but when you say you're applying to Macaulay Honors, you have to apply to a school Macaulay Honors. Maybe it's Hunter, maybe it's Queens. Maybe it's both. You put both of those schools. You don't have to put Macaulay Honors because that's not going to be listed on the FAFSA form. You would put just Hunter or just Queens. If you get into the Macaulay Honors program or the honors program, the tuition and room and board are free, but it is required by the school, by the federal government, that you do your financial forms. In the event that you are qualified for any kind of federal aid, Pell money, TAP money, the school wants that money. So even though you're getting free tuition, you still are required to do the FAFSA and TAP form. I hope that answered the question.
What do we do if the non-custodial parent isn't that involved? They don't submit deadlines, they don't submit the form.
All right, if the non-custodial parent is not cooperative, there is a non-custodial waiver form. Now, of course, we can't, I mean, they should do deadlines, yes, but if they refuse, there are some non-custodials that refuse to fill out any kind of forms. So you would have to get through the school, again, each school, a non-custodial waiver form. And there's a lot of requirements when you do that form. So, but you have to do it if they don't do it.
When on the CSS, it asks for your property value, but it does not ask for monthly maintenance charges, which is quite substantial in a New York City co-op. Is there a place to indicate the co-op monthly fee on the CSS?
Yes, it is not in that particular section, but at the very end of this CSS form, there are special circumstances. So you can say that you have this co-op, but you are required to pay X amount of dollars for maintenance fees. So that's an extenuating circumstance, and the college, that's the only way the college is going to find out, by doing the CSS profile in your special circumstances.
When filling out the dependent household members on the CSS profile, is it based on the 2019 tax form? Like my grandmother's not listed on that form. I think she has her own tax form. Is it just normally who is dependent on the parents?
Yes, it is who dependent on the parent. If the grandparent is living with you, but basically paying her own way, you're not really, you have to pay 50% or more of her expenses in order to put her down on the CSS profile as a family member. If she's paying her own way and she does her own tax returns, then no, you wouldn't put her down as a dependent.
Anna's saying, I'm not sure what the question is. Next, can you provide a link to fill out the CSS form? Thank you.
You just go to College Board, the same College Board that you do for the SATs.
collegeboard.com/profile, right?
collegeboard.com/profile.
I believe that's it.
Good. If your housing payment is like a mortgage payment, goes down after downsizing, does your expected contribution increase or remain the same? Does it depend whether it's FAFSA or CSS?
Okay, on the FAFSA form, they don't ask you about the home that you live in at all. On the FAFSA form, the only place that you have to put is if you have an extra home as part of an investment. But you're talking about if you have a co-op with the fees, is that what she's referring to, that it goes down?
Can you just elaborate on your question, please? Next question, for Excelsior, if we are attending college for the 2021 school year, does this mean the deadline passed already for
Absolutely.
graduates of
Yes.
2021, or do we fill it out later in the year?
No, it has, well, all right, I'll rephrase that. It has passed for the fall. If they're just transferring into a New York school, it will open up again in January. Okay, for them to do the Excelsior. And then their school year for that 30 credits will be January to January. That's when their school year will begin, January to January. So that's when they have to start doing that 30 credits. Right? You can't do it for.
What if you don't have some of the information that requires your W-2 form? Do you just put 0?
No, you have to put the information from your W-2. Sometimes accountants, if you don't have your W-2, sometimes the accountants do a W-2 statement at the end of their New York State tax return. So if for some reason you lost your W-2 or misplaced it, or if the accountant doesn't have it, they usually do a statement at the end of your state tax return, and you can get all the information you need from that.
For the current amount in cash, savings, checking, and deposits, does it also count credit card debt?
No. No, it's what you have in your checking and savings account.
What type of financial help when you apply for an Ivy League?
Well, the help could be scholarships, merit-based aid,
Yeah,
or
Kathy, if you're able to just elaborate on the question, but maybe just know Ivy Leagues are generally need-based anyway, so we have the information there. If your parents were unemployed due to COVID, now they have a job, can you still request financial aid to consider?
okay, just for this year, I don't know if they're going to do it next year. For this year, on the CSS profile, they do specifically have questions about COVID. They have it within the profile. They'll ask if your income was affected by the COVID. And you would say yes if you were unemployed for 3, 4, 6 months, whatever, or still unemployed, you would put yes. And then in the special circumstances in different categories, you would check off COVID. And within the special circumstances, you would write, I am either currently unemployed, I lost my job for 6 months, so my income went down by $50,000, you know, whatever the circumstances are due to the COVID, then you can put that down. But if it's not a CSS school, it is not on the FAFSA form, then you would have to appeal to the school directly, each individual school, and let them know about those circumstances. But the CSS profile schools, which are more expensive schools, you can elaborate on that.
Are all private schools need blind? Will they consider my CSS form before admission?
They don't even look at the CSS form until after you're admitted. No financial forms are looked at until after the student is admitted. You should go in need blind.
Should we put the colleges that have higher tuitions first? Amanda, that's a good question. I haven't heard that one before. A+, Amanda. All right. Should we put the colleges that have higher tuitions first, or the colleges that we're applying to? Does it matter what order?
The colleges don't look at the order that you put it in. All they do is when they go into upload, they can only upload their information. They won't even see who went where or what position you were in. You just put it, I would personally put on all the private colleges first. And the CUNY or SUNY schools on second, unless you're doing EA, early action. But I would do the private schools first because the deadlines are usually earlier anyway.
If one parent lost their job in 2020, is there any way to note the FAFSA application?
No, absolutely not. Mm-mm. The only way would be to appeal later on to the school.
So you can appeal after you're accepted.
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to clarify,
But
have you
appeal after you get your award, because you can't appeal before because you don't know what you're appealing. Maybe they're going to give you a bunch of money. You don't know that.
this is my question, I get priority question. In your years of experience, have you seen students appeal after committing to early decision?
Very rare.
No, I have not seen that.
So early decision would bind you to the tuition payment, whatever it is.
Early decision is just that. No matter what you get in financial aid, you're saying I'm going there. It is a binding contract. If you cannot afford the school and you're putting in early decision, you better find out from the school if there's any way that you can get out of going to that school early decision if you cannot financially afford it.
So how much, can you go over Excelsior again? How much is Excelsior aid? What is adjusting gross income excluded from 401k, pension, contribution, medical insurance deduction?
Has nothing to do with your retirement money, has nothing to do with medical expenses. It's 8A. I think it's line 8A on your federal tax return. Whatever your adjusted gross income, your assets are not included in the Excelsior.
I think it's 8B. Thinking about it.
I submitted my CSS profile. By the way, Lorraine, as we're doing this, I actually think the private chat is so much better. This is the new plan. So I want to thank all of you guys. This is the new plan for these particular meetings moving forward, because I think it's just less invasive. All right, I submitted my CSS profile a while ago. I think I need to change the information. How do I change my CSS form after submission?
All right. Unlike the FAFSA you can go in and you can change and resubmit it. The CSS profile, you cannot. The only way you can change the CSS profile is to print it out and make handwritten changes in the spots that you feel are incorrect, and send it to each and every school that you submitted the profile to with a letter stating how this mistake was made or why this mistake was made. How, like, I put $100,000 as my mortgage and it's really 500,000. I put a wrong number.
You mentioned FAFSA does not need to know your 401k balance, but will the CSS require it? How
Yes.
will the balance affect the aid?
Again, this is school aid, not federal aid. They don't take that into too much because you can't take that money out, but they do somehow or other put it into their equation.
If you tried let me scroll down, hold on. If you tried your best to fill out the forms, what are the consequences if you make an honest mistake or omission?
I'm not sure. When you say consequences mean are you fined if you put down the wrong amount of money? I mean, I have to tell you, when you put down the amount of cash that you have, if your tax returns say that you made $2,000 in interest, and you go down and you're putting down that you only have $2,000 in cash, the college is going to question that because of the amount of interest you earned, so making an honest mistake, that's not really too honest. So depending on what you mean by an honest mistake.
Question, if I move to a less expensive home from a more expensive home, my monthly maintenance goes down. Does my expected contribution and tuition go up since I'm spending less on housing now?
No, your expected family contribution is from the FAFSA form, and your house is not on your FAFSA form at all.
Miss Wilson, you have a question. What other services do you offer? Okay, go. What else do you do besides FAFSA and CSS profile?
So we
goodness.
more or less will hold your hand through the entire process. We will complete any and all financial aid forms. Schools require something called verification. We do the TAP applications, the EXCELSIOR applications, the loan applications, master promissory notes, entrance counseling. What else am I forgetting? I'm sure I'm forgetting something. We even do
IDOC.
We do IDOC. Some of the schools require the tax returns to be sent directly to them, so we upload them directly into the schools' portals. The only thing we don't do is monitor what's missing because we're not technically allowed to go into the students' portals. So they go in, and if you're missing, let's say they want copies of 1099 forms, and we won't know that. So we just have you tell us, and then we help you take care of it.
Before we go to the next question, do you mind just quickly going over pricing, what you charge to do private help with individuals who want like a specific assistance with their specific FAFSA? Because today's webinar is for general information, but let's say someone wants to work with you alone and just, do their own FAFSA and their own financial aid applications with you one-on-one.
So if we're doing your financial aid paperwork that does not require the CSS profile, that is FAFSA, TAP, EXCELSIOR, loans, etc. That price is $1,800. That's inclusive for the full year. You don't come back to us and we charge you more money next time you come in. And then if we have to do the CSS along with all the other paperwork, then it's $2,100 because there's additional paperwork to all of the schools you're applying for. And the renewal fees are a little bit less because we're not sending all the paperwork out to each of the schools. It's only a one school process. So the fee goes down a little bit in your second year and beyond.
So, and again, I just want to be very, very clear that I highly recommend that you consider this investment because it's just an overwhelming amount of responsibility to do alone. So it really does make a difference to have professional help. I communicated with quite a few different companies over the years. They charged $5,000 and up. Manhattan, every single person was $5,000 and up. So I just want to tell you, price-wise, this is the best value. And as you can see, they're here late at night. So they definitely work, I think 7 days a week is fair, right?
Yeah, even if we're not actually seeing clients, we're here on the weekend taking care of some paperwork for you that we can't take care of during the week. Things along those lines, getting ready for the following days. Yes, so it is a 7-day-a-week job.
And it helps to say that you are part of the Kweller Prep webinar. I mean, it's just so that we all work together. They refer customers to me, I refer to them. This is a really important service. Before we go to the next question, I really want to just share my own experience quickly with all of you. I did not get to do this at last week's webinar. So my parents had no idea that there were professionals who help with FAFSA and CSS. My parents are both union members. They just had no idea that you outsource this to someone who's a professional. I applied early decision to New York University. My very lower middle class parents had the shock of their lives after completing the FAFSA. And apparently, I guess they thought we were way richer than we were living that 1-bedroom. So after we learned and we spoke to people and my father spoke to people, this is really funny, rich people. And they told us that they outsource to professionals to help with the paperwork and to make sure everything is aligned. And they work with consultants. And at that point, my parents had invested in a consultant. It actually changed my financial aid the following year. So I do want to share with you that this is kind of a really cool opportunity for me because I get to give back 20 years later. I'm 38. This happened when I was 18 years old. And I mean, my family just had no idea. And my parents are immigrants. They had no idea that something like this is outsourced to a professional service. My parents, believe it or not, I mean, you better not raise your price, but my parents used someone in Manhattan and it was over $5,000. But again, it was a going rate for the city. So I'm really glad that, you know, you charge significantly less than that. But I do want to say having, you know, a level of professional help with someone who does this. And Lorraine, you're a CPA as well, right? Outside of
I am not, no, I am not a CPA. I do know how to read tax returns, but I am not a CPA, no.
How many years have you been working on FAFSA, CSS, financial aid profiles? How many years were you?
23 years.
23 years. So that's a lot of reading stuff that I don't know much about.
A lot of experience, a lot of things changed.
I do want to thank you. So I'll continue with the questions, but I did want to make sure to bring that up so that I wouldn't forget later that it's really important to just have someone who professionally looks at these forms and these paperworks. And it's a world of a difference. Let's keep going. Question, can I still update my CSS profile even though the college already received my CSS profile?
Again, you would have to change the number. You have to print it out completely and then change whatever needs to be changed and then write a letter to each of the schools that received that profile and send it out manually because once it's in, it's in. So you would have to write them a letter telling them of the change on the profile and why.
So this is really funny. So this is a better version of an earlier question. Let me try again. All right, good luck. If I move to a less expensive home from a more expensive home and my monthly housing goes down, does that mean I will be expected to contribute more for tuition and other costs of attending a college?
I want to answer that one.
No, because on a FAFSA per se, you don't include what you're paying for your monthly payments for your housing. So your tuition will not necessarily, or your scholarship or offer will not change. It's only if on a CSS profile where you need to put in what your monthly mortgage payment is or your monthly maintenance is, that it may tip the scale depending on what their methodology, what they determined to be. I don't think it would change significantly though.
What if my address changed from the 2019 tax return? Am I still using my old address or should I use my new one?
On the FAFSA, I would use the new address, but when you go to retrieve your IRS retrieval, you have to use the address on the tax return.
Let me keep going. For the parent financials tab on the FAFSA, do we have to combine both of our parents' info or the questions if we selected that they filed their taxes together?
You mean separately?
I think that was correct, yes.
I think when you're talking about if they file separately, do you have to combine them? The answer is yes, because they do ask about both parents. So you have to take the income. If one parent makes 50,000, the other parent makes 50,000, you have to put the total adjusted gross for the parents at 100,000. But if you file separately, you cannot retrieve it since it's separate.
Going to the next question. Let me see. Just a moment. I'm scrolling down. Do you know if schools expect parents with larger contribution retirement funds to contribute more by liquidating a part of their retirement funds?
The FAFSA does not require any information on retirement funds. On your total, they don't ask you about your IRA on the FAFSA form. They do not ask you about your IRAs or 401ks or anything like that. It is not listed on the FAFSA form at all.
Got it. Joyce, please clarify your question. It's partial. Erica, Erica, do you mind going over the Excelsior slide one? Can you go over Excelsior? I don't want to go back to the slideshow. It's too many steps, but can you just quickly go over Excelsior again, what the amount is?
If your adjusted gross income on your federal tax return, it has to be between parent and student, if the student files a tax return, $125,000.
Or less.
Or less, of course, or less, to qualify for the Excelsior. And then you must take 30 credits and pass 30 credits a year, which again includes your APs and college courses and things like that.
Is it advisable to link the tax return from the IRS to the FAFSA?
Absolutely 100%. If you could link it, do it. The schools want you to link it because then they know it's truth, because if you just put in numbers, you could put in any kind of number. So they really want you to put it in if you can.
You guys are so funny. You have so many questions. We're going to be here for a while. I'll try to zoom it up. When is the best time to send the printed version of my CSS profile with all the handwritten edits and the letter explaining them? Should I do it before? Well, there's more to the question. Should I do it before getting the letter with admission results, or should I do it after I get accepted, or if I get accepted?
As soon as you find a mistake.
I would do it as soon as possible. So this way, when they put together your financial award, it's done with the correct numbers. If you wait till after you're accepted, your award will go with the wrong CSS profile. So send it in as soon as possible. If you realize you already made a mistake, change it, send it out. But you don't just send it to one school. You have to send it to everybody.
More questions. My son is currently a junior. Is Bill in the meeting? Told you we should invite the juniors. My son is currently a junior. I'm very happy that you're here. Welcome. I credit me to get the juniors. All right. When should I start reaching out to Miss Wilson for her services?
Okay, the forms can be started October 1st of their senior year. So when your child becomes a senior in high school, I would tell you, if you're interested in sitting down with us for either a consult or coming in and actually you're sure you want to hire us for our services, I would tell you to call us in probably early August, because we book very quickly. Once we have, mostly October, November is all early action, early decision. People that need to get their forms in on time.
And my question, when's a really bad time to call you?
I had somebody call me today that needs a profile by the 15th, and today is the 11th. That's a bad time. It's very hard to fit you in if you call within a last minute. That's the best.
So what would you say is a good deadline for someone? Again, just because the kids at Kweller Prep tend to apply early decision, early action, kids from schools of the caliber of Townsend Harris, they tend to apply early action, they tend to apply early decision. So let's pretend, for the purposes of the conversation, the kids are looking to apply ED, EA, restrictive early action. What would be a rolling admission? What would be your advice as to when to reach out to you for private assistance?
Early August, we would get you in early October.
So good. When they look at the CSS info, how do they check it?
I'm not sure I understand.
How do they make sure that it's honest?
Well, they're checking, not only are they checking the CSS profile, but they're checking against the FAFSA. And if they don't agree, then they know it's wrong.
And the tax returns. They also ask for the tax returns.
Oh, well, right. They also, most of the time, most of the CSS profile schools ask for a copy of your tax return. So if things aren't matching, they know that you're wrong.
Fernando, we're gonna add the contact at the end. It's just, I wanna see the chat box, so I don't wanna type into it right now. If I wanna add another school to the CSS profile after I submit the CSS profile, what should I do?
You could do that at any time. You just go back in and it says add a school, and you'll just have to pay the extra $16 to add that school.
I'm a parent of a junior in high school. Should we start the FAFSA and CSS now?
No,
No, unless you're planning to graduate early. Just because I have some brains, I definitely have brains. That's an understatement in the audience. So unless you're planning to start school September 2021, correct? Is that August?
or in January 2021, if you're graduating early, that you're saying, oh, maybe they're going to graduate early. If they're going anytime during the 2021 school year, then yes, absolutely, you should be filling out the FAFSA and CSS profile.
Let's keep going. Hold on. Does it matter what we put in the section that asks how much money our parents will be willing to pay for tuition?
I sometimes figure that as in my opinion, in our opinion, from our experience, I don't want to call it a trick question, but if you put 0, they're going to laugh at you and say, oh, these people are not willing to do anything. And if you put in, hundreds of $1,000s, they say, we don't need to give you money. So we ask and tell you to put in an honest number that you feel that you could pay, not what the school says that you could pay, not what the government says you could pay, but based on your expenses and things along those lines. So it's a nice little niche to try and figure that out.
So let's keep going. I chose they file together. Their information to each question required is different. Do I just add them up together?
I don't know.
I'm not getting
don't get
that
that
question.
You're definitely not going to get the next one. All right, let me keep going. If parents are separated, they're not in contact anymore, just the custodial parent doesn't know where the other parent has filed taxes. How do we complete a FAFSA when we don't know anything about parent 2?
No, that's, you do not put
Parent 2 on.
the non-custodial parent on the FAFSA form. Absolutely not. Because if they're separated, you're only putting the custodial parent's information on there, and you can list it as divorce/separated. Then you list the parent. And now, all right, we'll go back. Did the parents file together or separately? So that's a different kind of question. If they recently separated, but they filed together, all right, you won't be able to retrieve, but you only put the income and assets of the parent that the student lives with most of the time. But if they already file separately, you only put the income of the parent that they live with.
So again, I just want to be clear with pricing. So you said $1,800 to do all the FAFSA paperwork with you, $2,100, so that would be 18 plus 300. Is that correct? To do the CSS profile, which, am I correct? It's like a 25-page, it's a very long document. So, and then do you offer how does your consult work? Do you charge for a consult? Like, what if they just wanted to meet you before committing to the service?
So a lot of times when someone calls in, we spend a decent amount of time on the phone with them. We explain information. We try to get some information about you, what your income is, so we can better be prepared to tell you how we feel we could help you. If you still wanted to come in for a consult after we talk to you on the phone, we generally charge $500 for our consult, but we do deduct some of it if you do sign with us. So if you were to sign with us, then we would take some of that money that you paid for the consult off and not make you pay the additional $18 or $2,100.
This is actually a very silly question, but I'm going to ask. The CSS profile is like 25 pages, right?
Yes.
So you only charge $300. So basically you have to do the FAFSA, and then you just charge a minimal price? Well, why is it, I mean, it's 25 pages. Like, why is it only 300 more? I'm just trying to understand on my own as well.
Okay, so we here feel that you're already paying quite a bit of money to come in and do it. A lot of the information that we put on the CSS profile is quote unquote readily available on the FAFSA that we already did. For example, your income, your assets, things from your tax returns. And if we can get you, and if you come in here and we can get you to follow and send us the paperwork that we need ahead of time, we can do a lot of the prep work ahead of time. So being you're spending so much money, we try to keep the rest of the costs down as best as possible.
Repeat CSS dependent household members, who should be included there?
On the CSS dependent members, it's whoever lives in your home, parent or parents, sisters or brothers, and any other dependent that the parents pay more than 50% of support for, a grandmother, a grandfather, or something along those lines. If that grandmother or grandfather is self-supporting and just lives in your home, then they do not go as a dependent on the FAFSA, on the CSS.
I think since we're done, I think it would be so nice if we all just said thank you. And this would be a really, so I'm gonna allow participants to unmute themselves. So you're welcome to type to unmute yourselves, everybody. You can say thank you. And you can also type thank you. This was really informative. Something cute that I like to do is take a picture of the thank you. So I'll go through it right now. Okay, so thank you guys very, very much for this time. We started at 7:30. We got the group together around 7:40, 7:45. I'm really excited to tell you that you know, in your own free time and as a, joint partnership with the Townsend Harris High School Parents Association, I really want to thank Bill, who's in the audience right now, Irina, who's in the PA. I want to just thank you so much because this was a joint idea and it was just so informative. I mean, it's always informative. I've listened to this for years. It's remarkable. I actually listened to this same thing a week ago and I learned something new every single time. So I really want to take a moment to say thank you. Bill, if you're in the chat, I would love for you to go off mute and we want to say thank you. Irina, if you want to say thank you as well.
I definitely want to thank you, Francis, for giving us opportunity and for you, Joanne, for both of you to giving us such an informative session and for helping people in this tedious process. Just wish you all the best, stay safe, be well, and thank you for all your help. It's not the money people pay, it's how, and you could see how devoted you are, just looking at you and all your answers. Thank you so much.
So I'm gonna switch the participants so you can chat with everyone. So we can all write thank you in the chat. I'm doing the everyone in the meeting. Joanne, I'm gonna write your number down. Oh, there's Bill. Thank you, Bill. Here you go.
Oh, just to add to what Irina said, that they did a wonderful job. I learned a lot. It's very interesting. It's a very daunting form. And then a lot of parents are nervous and stressed out about it. And this really, really helped soothe a lot of nerves. I have a calm demeanor, which I think helps a lot too. Thank you. And the PTA will do what it can. I mean, we have parents that approach us and we'll try to refer them to you because I think this is a very good service. So on behalf of the PTA, thank you.
I'm typing Joanne's phone number, 516-379-3232. Okay, good. I guess it helps to say Kweller so you get royal treatment. If they don't call you, call me because then I text message them. It's pretty cool. So, and I remind them to call you. So I'm happy that that works because I know you had a busy week. All right, so just keep that in mind. So I just put it so that everyone can see the chat in the group. And I mean, they'll get through, right? You check your voicemail every day. Is that fair? Good.
Voicemail couple of times a day. Yes, easy, definitely. You will get through. I will ask though, and Lorraine will vouch the next couple of days, just getting the rest of the early decision, early action applications might be a little slower than you would normally get, but you will get a call back within 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, just in case you don't hear back, you can call me. We did that with one of the parents who, I'm ashamed to tell you, he was a little last minute. So I did text Lorraine late at night to make sure to respond. So, you know, if you need to reach out to either Joanne Wilson Consulting, or you can reach out to me and I'll help nudge if you're a little behind, because this is a very busy week for all of you. I do want to remind you that Kweller Prep has a lot of test prep, tutoring, assistance. It's really important not just to organize your financial aid and the applications. You really want to make sure that your actual just college profile looks very good, because when you apply to college, they'll automatically consider you for a lot of scholarship opportunities. NYU Stern, if they like you, they have the Ann Bryce Scholarship. Hofstra has the honors program. There's a lot of on-the-spot admissions right now happening virtually, which is really cool. We also help with interviews. A lot of kids, actually helped someone in Hong Kong, believe it or not. So we were working on an interview together. So just keep in mind that there's a lot of service available besides just the FAFSA. There's a lot of scholarship opportunity when you have a strong college application. So keep that in mind too. It's not just about financial aid, financial need, but there's also great opportunity for scholarships. And just to quickly touch on that for a minute, there's FastWeb. FastWeb has a big scholarship database, scholarships.org. If you take college classes, the more college classes you take while you're in high school, you'll be able to accumulate college credits. Many schools will allow for transfers, and sometimes they don't, but you can fight it and they will. I've seen quite a few kids appeal getting as many credits as they can. So if you're in a position where you can start taking college classes early on, grab as many as you can. You'll learn something new and you'll accumulate. Some students get a semester, some students get a full year of college credits, and that really transfers into tens of thousands of dollars. If you take AP classes, advanced placement, if you score a 4 or 5, a tremendous amount of opportunity for APs. This year for APs, you have to register with your school. It's very important that you register, that you sign up. Don't treat the APs lightly, because you can get fully transferable college credits off one exam. So keep that in mind. We offer quite a lot of test prep at Kweller. So keep us in mind also, because we are running classes. We've socially distanced all the classrooms. We also run Zoom sessions, and we have a really, really nice program. It's not too far away from Townsend Harris. It's actually located right in the heart of Forest Hills, Queens. So you're always welcome to, enter, to do Zoom or to do a site visit. We're looking forward to working with any new families who are here. And we're really happy about the ones who are returning. And we have quite a few who I recognized from years. And I'm really excited to share that now they're applying to college. So it's a really cool milestone. Thank you everyone for this wonderful evening. Joanne, Lorraine, I mean, what more can I say? Thank you. It's late at night. I know that you have so much work ahead of you, and there's so many deadlines right now with the November 15th college application pool with the early applicants. And you really did this on very short notice. So we all just want to owe you a big, huge, gigantic thank you. I'm also, just before I close the chat box, I'm just going to read your email. It's joanne@wilsoncollegeconsulting.com. So I'm going to type this into the chat box so that we have it. Joanne, JOANNE @wilsoncollegeconsulting.com. So everyone, please feel free to, reach out and to consider this as an option. It doesn't have to be an option. We're going to share the video as well. I'll give it to Bill. He'll be able to share it too. So Wilson College Consulting, wilsoncollegeconsulting.com. Good, I have it, right? I hope so. All right. Last but not least, I really want to thank Zoom. Zoom has been a blessing to all of us. So lately I've been thanking Zoom. Lorraine has learned how to share screen. I learned how to be an assistant. It's really quite a change for all of us. So I learned how to hit next 50 times during a slideshow. So I want to just say thank you to every single person who is listening and participating. Thank you, Bill, sincerely putting this together. You know, Bill, Irina, the PA of Townsend Harris, they're volunteers. I mean, you guys really, really are just incredible. Thank you so much. Irina, I love the headset. I got to get one in blue. All right, take care. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting. This meeting was recorded, so we're going to share this meeting once it uploads to YouTube, and then we'll share the file. Thank you, everyone. All right, and again, it's Joanne at wilsoncollegeconsulting.com. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.